She didn't knock. She kicked the door with her heel and screamed, "HOA police, open up." Before I could even stand up from the couch, my son dropped his cereal. Milk all over the floor, and two men in fake uniforms rushed inside like they owned the place. Karen stood behind them with her phone out, smiling like she finally won. "Arrest him," she yelled, pointing at me. "He's an illegal occupant. He refuses HOA rules." One of the fake cops grabbed my arm hard. Another started flipping my sofa, opening drawers, breaking frames on the wall. I stayed quiet, not scared, just watching. Karen walked deeper into my house, tearing down my flag from the wall and laughing. "This is HOA property now." My son started crying, asking me, "Dad, are we going to jail?" I looked at Karen and said calmly, "You should stop this right now." She stepped closer, face red with power, and whispered, "You're done. Nobody messes with me." I slowly reached into my pocket, not to fight, just to feel the badge I never show. And in my head I thought, she has no idea whose house she just raided. One of the fake cops shoved me toward the wall and said, "Hands up. Don't act smart." While Karen kept yelling that I was trespassing on HOA-controlled land, she waved a paper in my face like it was law, saying my house was seized, my truck would be towed, and my son would be taken if I didn't comply. That part broke something inside me, because my son held my leg tight, shaking. Karen leaned down to him and said, "Your dad should have followed rules." I asked the fake cops quietly, "Which department are you from?" They froze for half a second. Then one answered fast, "County Special HOA Unit." I almost smiled. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy calling someone on speaker, bragging. Yes, I finally removed him. At that moment, I saw one fake cop unplug my security camera and toss it aside. "Dad, move," I slowly said. "You just destroyed federal evidence." Karen laughed loud and clapped once. "Federal? You live in a cheap house. Stop lying." I looked at the broken camera, then at the man holding me, and said calmly, "Let go of me now." He tightened his grip instead. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. One message. One line. "We see everything. Stay." Karen heard my phone vibrate and snapped. "Confiscate it," like she was already the judge. One fake cop reached for my pocket, but before he could grab it, a loud knock hit the door. Slow, heavy, confident. Everyone went quiet. Karen rolled her eyes and shouted, "HOA business. Stay out." The knock came again, harder this time. One of the fake cops whispered to her, "We should finish fast." That's when my neighbor across the street started recording from his porch, and another neighbor opened a window. Karen noticed and hissed, "Stop filming or I'll fine you." I finally spoke again, still calm. "Karen, this is your last chance." She laughed and said, "You don't give chances. People like you take orders." Then the front door opened by itself, because I never lock it during the day. Two real uniformed deputies stepped in, eyes scanning the broken furniture, the crying kid, the fake badges. One deputy asked one simple question, "Who's in charge here?" Karen rushed forward fast, pointing at me again, "Arrest him. He's the criminal." The deputy looked at her, then looked at me, and his face changed. He stood straight and said quietly, "Sir, is everything okay?" Karen smiled slowly. Karen stepped between me and the deputy like she could block the truth with her body. "Don't listen to him," she said fast. "He's pretending. He does this every time." One of the fake cops tried to slide toward the back door, but the second deputy noticed and said, "Nobody moves." The room felt tight, heavy. The deputy walked closer to me and lowered his voice. "Sir, we got a silent alert from this address." Karen laughed loud to cover the panic in her eyes. "Silent alert? He can't even pay HOA fees." I slowly pulled my arm free, not aggressive, just steady, and reached into my pocket. Karen gasped like I was pulling a weapon. Instead, I held up a worn badge. No shine, no drama. The deputy's jaw locked. He took a step back and said, "Yes, sir." Karen's phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. "That's fake," she shouted. "That's not real. He's lying again." I looked at her and said softly, "You broke into a federal officer's home, in front of witnesses, with fake police." One of the fake cops whispered, "We're dead." Outside, sirens started getting closer. Not HOA, real ones. And Karen finally realized this wasn't her neighborhood. Karen started backing up, shaking her head like saying it out loud. "And do it." No. No, he never said this before. she kept repeating. One of the fake cops dropped his badge on the floor and raised his hands, mumbling that he was just hired. The deputy asked me quietly, "Do you want them cuffed now?" Karen heard that and snapped, "You can't arrest me. I run this HOA." I looked at my son, wiped his tears with my thumb, then nodded once. The sound of cuffs felt louder than the sirens outside. Karen screamed that this was harassment, that she knew judges, that this would all disappear. Then another patrol car stopped, then another, and then a black SUV. A man stepped out in a suit, not rushing, just walking straight in like he knew the house. He looked at the damage, the broken camera, the fake notices on my door. He turned to me and said, "Sheriff, we traced these fake HOA raids across 3 states. Karen's knees gave up. She whispered. This was just supposed to scare him. I leaned closer and said, "You scared the Ron." The man in the suit asked Karen for her HOA papers, her authority letter. Anything real. She handed over a messy folder with shaking hands, still talking fast, still lying. He flipped one page, then another, then closed it. "These are fake," he said. Karen shouted that everyone does it, that people like me need control. One deputy walked outside and came back holding my vintage truck keys. "She ordered a tow," he said. Truck was already damaged. Karen tried to say it was HOA property, but I quietly slid a folded paper from the drawer and placed it on the table. "Land deed. Real seal. Real name." The man in the suit nodded once. "This land is federal protected," he said. Karen's face went pale. She screamed that I tricked her, that I looked weak on purpose. I looked at her and said, "You don't see power when you only respect knows." My son held my hand tighter as Karen was walked past him in cuffs, still yelling, still blaming. Outside, neighbors stood silent, watching the woman who fined them for years get put into a car. One of them whispered, "We judged the wrong man." I didn't answer, because this wasn't over yet. Karen didn't stop screaming even inside the car. Through the window she shouted that she would sue everyone, that this would be on the news, that power always comes back to people like her. The suited man ignored her and turned to the neighbors instead. He asked simple questions. Who paid fines? Who got threats? Who had cameras removed? Hands slowly went up. Stories poured out. Every word tied back to Karen. One deputy told me they found storage units full of seized property, cars, tools, even family photos, all labeled HOA violations, he said. I felt my jaw tighten. Karen heard that and went quiet for the first time. Then she looked straight at me and whispered through the glass, "You ruined my life." I leaned down so she could hear me clearly and said, "No, you exposed it yourself." The suited man placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "This case will go public." My son looked up at me and asked, "Dad, can we go home now?" I nodded. As the cars pulled away, a neighbor started clapping. Then another, then the whole street. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just justice for us. It was freedom for everyone. That night didn't end when the cars left. That's the part people don't expect. Silence came back slowly, like the street was scared to breathe again. Broken glass was still on my floor. The couch was torn. Drawers were hanging open, and my son was asleep on my shoulder before the sun even went down. I carried him to his room and sat there for a long time, just watching him sleep, making sure nobody would ever scare him like that again. Outside, the neighbors didn't go back inside. They stayed, talking in low voices, like they were sharing secrets they were never allowed to say before. One old man kept repeating, "I knew something was wrong with her." A woman cried because her husband's tools were taken months ago and she thought it was her fault. I stepped outside and told them calmly, "It's over now." That's when they understood this wasn't a show. This was real. By morning, news vans were parked at the end of the street. Karen's HOA office was sealed, her accounts frozen, her fake cops identified one by one. Turns out they were just guys she paid cash, gave fake uniforms, and told them the police would never question it. She was wrong, very wrong. Federal charges don't care how loud you scream. I gave one statement and went quiet again. I don't like cameras. I never did. The suited man told me this case would be used as an example. People like her rely on fear, he said. And fear only works when good people stay silent. I didn't answer. I was looking at my son drawing on the floor with crayons, smiling again like yesterday never happened. Weeks passed. Court dates stacked up. Karen tried everything. Fake tears, blaming stress, blaming others, saying she was protecting the neighborhood. Nobody listened. The footage from my destroy camera was already backed up. Every word she said, every order she gave, every laugh while my house was being wrecked. When they played it in court, the room went quiet. The judge didn't even look angry. He looked disappointed. That's worse. Her lawyer tried to say she didn't know I was federal, that she thought she had authority. The judge replied, authority doesn't come from shouting. The HOA was dissolved. All fines refunded. Properties returned. That storage unit full of people's lives was opened, and neighbors picked up pieces of themselves they thought were gone forever. My truck was repaired by the county. No questions asked. One afternoon, my son and I washed it together in the driveway. He asked me, Dad, why did she hate us? I thought for a second and said, she didn't hate us. She hated that she couldn't control us. He nodded like he understood. More than his age should allow. On the last day of court, Karen looked smaller. No shouting, no power. Just a person finally seeing the damage they caused. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time, waiting for something. Anger, pride, revenge. I gave her nothing. Because the real win wasn't her punishment. The real win was my son sleeping peacefully, my neighbors standing taller, and a street that finally felt like home. I locked my door that night, not out of fear, but out of choice. Freedom feels different when you've defended it quietly. And sometimes, the strongest people are the ones nobody sees months later. The street felt different. No warning letters, no threats taped to doors. Just kids riding bikes and neighbors waving like they owned their own lives again. A new community board was formed. Real this time, and they asked me to join. I said no. I'd done my part. Towers should never sit too long in one place. One evening, my son and I stood on the porch watching the sun go down. He asked me, Dad, are bad people always that loud? I smiled and said, most of the time, yes. A flag waved softly above us, the same one Karen tore down, now hanging stronger than before. Before going inside, I looked at the land, the house, the quiet street, and felt something rare. Peace. Not the kind you get from winning, but the kind you earn by standing your ground without becoming what you fight. And if anyone ever tries to tell my family, you don't belong here again, they'll learn the same lesson she did.